This is my Plymovent welding extract. It goes straight out through the roof. There are some issues with the noise that it gives off when it's on full chat for the neighbours. So we are looking at alternatives to quietening this system down. I've got no intentions of putting exhaust outlets on it on the roof, as you see on some factory buildings that are fitted with these. It is a straight run. The fan is balanced. I did it myself when I obtained this and refurbished it. The motor is a brand new single phase motor. It was single phase originally, this system. Plymovent do offer a £400 addition to this when I spoke to them to give it speed control, and even prior to the noise that it gives off, sometimes it is just too much. It's too much. It takes your gas away from your TIG welding. It would be nice to have some control over it other than slightly closing the flap that's inside there and throttling it back. So we're looking at cheap Chinese alternatives for this. I have plumbed for one and we're going to look at this. So there it is. It was 14.30 delivered. Single phase. It's just going to be some sort of resistor pot in there. You can get, as it happens when I was looking, single phase inverter speed controls, but they are hellishly expensive, so we won't be going down that route. We're not going down the route of changing the motor for a three-phase motor and using a cheaper Chinese inverter, which could be an option. We're just going to stick with what we got and throttle back what we've got. So what we're going to do first is just make sure we got an earth before we start plugging it into the wall. Right, so straight away we can see there is no earth. Wow, that's interesting. So there is no earth. There is no earth continuity. Let's just make sure it's not the plug. So we're actually losing earth continuity through this plug, so it doesn't even get as far as this plug. Okay. What you'll also notice about this plug, it's not fused. I've got to admit, I'm a little bit amazed by that hasn't even got earth continuity. That is that's a surprise. Okay, so onto there. Right, we have got earth continuity from that lead, the earth of there, through to there. Like I say, no fuse on there, so I have got no intention to keeping this plug anyway. I was going to chop it off and put a plug on it with a fuse, UK plug. We're going to have a quick gander in here now. Okay, so opening this up, I mean, I'm no big Clive. I don't understand electronics to the degree it is. I'm just talking as a bloke in his workshop with tinkers with a bit of electrics. I'm already quite surprised at this, and it only adds fuel to the fire of cheap Chinese crap. Because at the moment, I've got to say, I'm not that impressed. So. The circuit board is directly mounted to this little pot here, and that is moving around everywhere, and I'm going to presume that pot there, if it became loose, there's a nut in there. Can we see the nut? Hang on, let's take that off. If that nut was to come undone, They weren't that tight. The legs off the here will touch the side, and the casing will become live. What we're going to do is have a quick look at what voltage is on that board. I'm not going to power it up, we're just going to have a little look at the leads. Okay, so the only thing keeping that board on are 3 soldered connections onto here, and that bolts to the casing here. We've got the on-off switch, live cable, straight to the back of the circuit board. There's no step down. Appear to have some sort of resistors, load resistor, heat sink, some sort of MOSFET thing. I don't know much about that. But this board is live against that metal casing. If that was to touch, that would definitely go. Dangerous in itself, even more so dangerous when you've got an adapter that you lose the earth through. Right, so where do we go here? Yeah. So yeah, that's obviously going to be the full whack, the 220, but that is inside a little plastic case, and I don't see a problem with that. We're taking a neutral for there simply for the light, but you see how those have been bent over, joined together and soldered. Bit sparse on the solder on there. Anyway, like I say, this is an electronics review because I don't know enough about it. This is, am I safe to plug this in? And at the moment, no. I'm gonna work on this. Where's your earth for the casing? Like if we had an earth continuity, but where is the earth for the casing? There is no earth. Oh, also to be noted, there's a tab here and a tab there. Those tabs sit against paint. Just sit against the casing here. So the only thing that butts up against that is 2 tabs. Well, what's stopping those tabs folding back after you knock it a bit and it will all come loose? It doesn't sit on the face of here, it sits on those thin tabs. This is a pretty dodgy piece of equipment, to be fair. We're going to see if we can make it a bit better, but I've got to say I'd stay away from this. I have now modified this using some earth wire. You notice an addition of a bolt here, addition of a bolt there. This is some high voltage gloves we're working on, hybrid cars that have lost their life. You'll see there's no bare terminals in there, but still has an airflow allowance. I'm not going to show you inside the box what I've modified, I'm not qualified to do so. But you kind of get the gist of what I've done. So we have a UK plug with a 3 amp fuse. 3 amp fuse is far less than this is allegedly capable of, but it's more suited towards the motor that I'm running off this. So we now have earth continuity to there, to there, to there, to there, and to the rear casing. So it's all earth now. We have strain relief on here. There was no strain relief before. The strain relief was simply when the wires pull tight inside. So yeah, it's a lot better than it was. So we're going to try it on the motor now itself. Right, we're just going to go through the motions now prior to it ending up in the bin. UK mains is 220 volts. Turning it on, it's our minimum setting, and we're fluctuating around the 55 volt mark. Admittedly, there is no load at the moment. at a quarter on the throttle, we're looking at 200 volts at a quarter. Dropping that down to 50 volts. So at half the range of the potentiometer, we have an indicated power output of 60 volts more than is actually going into it. $70 volts. And now at maximum, we've come down to 238, so it's less than consistent across the range. Now plug the Plymovent into the speed control, and we've lost display. That is really as to be expected now. There is a load across it. At quarter, there is no display. We are now half, and the motor is trying to turn. So 125 volts. The motor is running rather noisy. It's quite a high temperature on the motor. So that's full throttle, and that is 24 volts up on the supply that is actually going into it. So one thing about it, it is consistently crap. In the short space of time that we've just tried that, the contact within the plug here in the socket has become tarnished through heat. So it probably wasn't making a good contact with the prongs of the plug. The plug is a good quality one, so there's no issues there. But the contact has become, the live has become tarnished. What we need to remember here is we're just running a single phase motor with a fan directly connected to it. There's no high load. It draws very little amps. The only resistance that fan's got is what's inside the actual unit itself. There's nothing actually mechanically connected to it, and to see hot contacts inside there is very, very poor, and who knows what would have happened if it was to continue to run. This is simply a very poor quality item. I don't believe it's suitable for speed control, for not what I want anyway. And quite honestly, I think it's dangerous. I won't be using this. I'll just stay with the fan on flat out until I can think of a cheap alternative. Further to this, I decided to take the adapter plug apart, and it's quite simply these screws hold these pins in. Those screws simply touch the back of those contacts. The reason we had no earth is the tabs are folded on that one. The earth has gone below the surface. That pin, Phillips head screw, whatever, would never touch that. We would never have an earth unless you shove that contact back through. So all it simply does is rests on the back of there. I decided to open an old one that I had off something in the past, and although still a poor piece of equipment, non-fused, you can see that this one is at least riveted from the earth pin straight through to the contact. So these, although still not ideal, are considerably better than this, which could arguably be ran at 13 amps and simply touches the back of there. So if you was to pull the plug or anything, or trip over your lead, you could break contact with these, worst of all your earth. Very poor equipment.